Hello, welcome back to the allotment. It is about the 25th, I think, or the 26th of August. A lot has changed in the allotment since the last time I did a video, so I'll take you around now and we'll have a little look. As I say, a lot of things have changed in the allotment over the last month, but one thing that hasn't changed is that I'm still picking courgettes. Lord have mercy, I've just got so many. Definitely got enough courgettes in the freezer now, I would think until next year. Not sure if you can make out how big this is on the camera. It's a whopper. I'm leaving this courgette to just grow to its maximum because I'm going to try and save the seed for it. But some birds been pecking at it, but it should be all right. I'm just interested to see how big it's actually going to grow. I'm starting to get some empty patches opening up now, quite a few actually, as I pull crops out. This border's had all sorts in it this year. I had onions, I had garlic, I've got beetroot now, I had tomatoes. The tomatoes got blight. Not a big surprise this year, I was looking out for it. The weather's been so humid, so yeah, it was kind of inevitable. As soon as first sign of it, I just took them all out. I've took the green tomatoes off the plants and I've just chopped them up and put them in the freezer because I did a little experiment. I just tossed some of the chopped up green tomatoes in with a lasagna when I was making lasagna and they were fine just as green tomatoes, so I'm just going to use them like that. I did have a few little bucketfuls of tomatoes at the other side of the allotment which haven't gotten blight, so that's good. Also, I have got lots of tomatoes at home in the back garden. Happily, they aren't affected at all by the blight. They're looking very healthy, they're looking very strong. Not a massive amount of fruit on them, but I'm happy with them. I'm just waiting for them to ripen now because time is getting on. This is this strawberry bed's first year and it has been a dead loss. I think I've barely had a single strawberry out of it. The strawberries that have grown have been eaten by I don't know who. Anyway, at the moment I am trying to propagate them by pinning down the runners. This is a separate section of strawberry bed. Same here, virtually no strawberries at all. And again, I'm trying to propagate it to take this strawberry bed right the way along. And I'm taking the runners like that. And I'm either pinning them into the soil where it's in the right position, or I'm just pushing them into a pot like that to let them take root there. The leeks are doing well. I put these in to follow my broad beans. They've been in for, well, what, 6 weeks or something now. They all look healthy and strong despite the fact that before I managed to get them in, the rabbits had nibbled them all right down and I was worried they weren't going to recover. Yeah, but they have, they're great. And I was going to crow this video and say, oh yes, we've managed to solve the rabbit problem in this allotment because we've put mesh all the way around the outside, and I haven't seen one for several weeks, but when I walked in this morning there was a little baby bunny hopping about, so pretty mad about that. Also, this giant tree here, this is magenta goosefoot. You can use it as a salad leaf. Obviously when the leaves are small and tender, and it's also very pretty. It starts out very small and it grows to this, which is almost like a tree. Some of you might remember that last year I discovered that this is a type of wild quinoa, and if you let it grow and flower and go to seed, it's the seed that is the quinoa. So last year I tried this. I was going to let it grow and collect the seed and see what I got from it, but unfortunately it got blown over by the wind and snapped at about this stage. So I'm trying it again this year just to see what happens. I don't expect to get much, but it's just an interesting experiment, and apart from that, it's quite pretty really, isn't it? This is the brassica border. We had netting over this until last week, and when I eventually took the netting off just to weed it and to have a little look, there were more caterpillars and bugs and what have you inside the net than there were outside. So I've just taken the net off because it's just an eyesore and more of an encumbrance than anything else. We haven't done too badly. I've had a bit of sprouting broccoli from it and calabrese. These, I've got 3 sprout plants. They're doing all right. It's the first time I've really tried to grow sprouts, and I am getting some. At this time of year though, they're not that tasty. I believe they need to get frosted to get them to be tasty, and the pickings I've had from them are a bit bland. This is more sprouting broccoli for later on in the winter. Not sure if I'll carry on growing sprouts. They take up a lot of room, and you don't seem to get an awful lot of return so far anyway. These gorgeous things are leek flowers. I left a couple of leeks in last year, 2 or 3 leeks, to see if I could save seed. So these are the beautiful flowers. They've gone over now. I'm just waiting for these flower heads to dry out, and then I'm going to save seed and see if I can grow some leeks next year. This behind me is the squash border. Squash, what a dead loss this year. In this border I had smaller type of squash. I had munchkin and uchigikuri. We've just had so much rain, you wouldn't believe it this year. Well, you might if you've had the same. So the squash did form and they all looked great initially, but when I checked it again last week after another long bout of rain, the stems that were attaching the fruit to the vine were all starting to rot. So I've just had to take them off. I don't know whether they're ready or not. I think they're probably not. I'm hopeful that if I just leave them on the sideboard, they'll ripen up. But it was either that or lose them completely. Also, I'll try and show you out the back into the secret garden over the fence. It has become very overgrown out in the secret garden. We've just kind of given up on it for this year. I planted the squash out there into a mix of rotted down wood chips and compost from the compost heap that wasn't fully composted down, and I think that's what the issue was. I planted them and they just didn't grow at all. The leaves yellowed and they just sat there and sat there and sat there. So yeah, we're just kind of giving up on that. I am annoyed because that's where all my big squash were. I had Anna Schwartz variety and another big variety. So we're not going to get anything from there this year. And I think from now on, I'm going to just maybe push in a couple of fruit trees out the back there and see if I can get them to grow. Because I've had no success with anything else. The peas are all finished now. We did quite well with them. I've tried to save quite a lot of seed this year from them. We had some lovely Kent blue seed off Bill and Val, and I've tried to save quite a lot of that because it was so pretty, and the other varieties too. It's now bean season. These are the runner beans. You can't really go wrong with runner beans. They just grow no matter what, don't they? We don't pick the runner beans when they're in their podded form. We don't really like them, find them a bit tough and hairy. What we do is we allow them to fully mature on the vine and dry out, and we harvest the beans and we store the beans in a tin or whatever in the cupboard, and we use them for soups and casseroles. We much prefer it that way. You get a lovely big hearty bean out of them. The other half of this border is dedicated to green beans and French beans. They are coming in now. We're getting a punnet every couple of days. I've got about 2 or 3 different varieties here, and they're fine, they're nice enough. Can anybody tell me, is there a difference between a French bean and a green bean? Is it just the same thing with a different name? I don't know. Although I have to say, none of these things are producing a huge amount of flower. A lot of leafy greens, and I think this border was probably a little bit too well fertilized before I put them in. I know these kinds of plants prefer a soil that isn't quite as full of nutrition as some other plants would enjoy. It causes them to grow, as I say, lots of leafy greens and not enough flowers and fruit. Our allotment is small, so I do try to grow quite a lot of things in the back garden as well, as you've seen from the tomatoes that grow there. Happily, the one thing that this very poor summer has done is meant I've been able to grow lettuce throughout the year. Usually it'll bolt in kind of late spring, early summer. but I've managed to plant a second crop of lettuce, and that is still growing on. Some iceberg lettuces they are, I believe. And I've also got stuff in the greenhouse which I'm having some success with. I've grown aubergines for the first time. I'm absolutely delighted about them, although I was rather thrown by the fact that they're just like little thin fingers. I was expecting to have proper sized aubergines, but I'm happy with them. And cucumbers and little gherkins I'm growing, which I've been pickling as I go. Sadly, the melon experiment, I probably couldn't have picked a worse year to try and grow melons this far north. It's been a complete failure. Everything outside just failed to grow. The melon in the greenhouse has grown leaves, but just tiny little fruit. So yeah, that's been a fail. This empty border here is where I had the potatoes. Again, another tale of sorrow, I'm afraid. We got blight, so I had to take them all out. It was all the main crop potatoes. It was King Edward's and Maris Pipers. I mean, we got a bag full of potatoes, but they were small. You know, we got some about that size, but a lot of them are just that big. They just hadn't had time to grow before the blight struck, and I thought I might as well just take them out and get what I can before the potatoes themselves get affected. So not a good year for potatoes at all, and I know neighbouring allotments have said the same. Very poor. And the potatoes were funny from the very start. Actually, we had problems with the foliage dying back, and they seemed to be dying back quicker than they should have been. So yeah, I'm not sure what was going on there with them. Tucked onto the end of that border, I got some beans out of the cupboard. They were just beans I'd bought in the shop, black beans and white beans. And I thought, oh, I'll give them a go. So I've planted them. This is them. They've taken a long time to come on, but hoping I might get a late crop of beans. Be like French beans, I think. And then further up, I've pushed in some chard. And at the end there is the Asturian tree cabbage. I had this in all last year and the year before. It grows to about 3 foot tall, and you get huge leaves from it. And I think it's a short-lived perennial, I believe. Well, that's the allotment this August. Hasn't been a very good year really, but never mind, you win some, you lose some. We're definitely starting to feel a little bit autumnal now. The blackberries are getting picked, the apples are starting to ripen. It's feeling got that little chill in the mornings, but I don't mind that. Autumn's my favourite season. Catch you next time. Bye.